WYMT Mountain News at 6.
What happens next? That is the question in a too close to call governor's race. A few thousand votes separate Republican Governor Matt Bevin and Governor-elect Andy Beshears. Their views moving forward differ. Beshears planning the transition, while about an hour ago, Governor Bevin explained his reasoning to call for a recanvass. WYMT's Will Puckett and Connor James listened in on that news conference and join us now from outside the governor's mansion in Frankfort. Guys.
Steve, 24 hours ago right now, polls started to close across Kentucky, and now 24 hours later, the pace is just as furious as it was last night. An hour ago, like you mentioned, the governor called a news conference where he discussed his reasoning behind calling for that recanvass. He took about 10 minutes to tell us why he is calling for that recanvass. He did not answer any questions from the handful of media outlets that were on hand. He says there are some irregularities that they want checked. He also took the time to take a shot at the Secretary of State.
So for her to try to jump the gun on this and interject herself into this, a little suspect as well. We know there have been thousands of absentee ballots that were illegally counted. That is known, and this again is something that's being looked into. We know that there are reports of people having been turned away, incorrectly turned away from various voting booths around the state. Again, things that need to be corroborated and looked into.
Connor, very methodical news conference from the governor just outlining why he is calling for that recanvass. We did have the fortunate luck to hear from the person who right now looks to have beat him in Governor-elect Andy Beshears.
Yeah, we heard Andy Beshears speak this morning at the Muhammad Ali Center in Louisville. He's pretty confident. He basically said to him, this election's over. He appointed his transition chair, and he's just really ready to move on.
With a margin of roughly 5,000 votes, Governor Bevin has yet to concede.
Last night, the election ended. It ended, and it's time to move forward.
Andy Beshears looking to move forward, appointing J. Michael Brown as his transition chair.
Our government, our whole system is based on changes of authority, and what distinguishes us is that it's peaceful and it's smooth.
Beshears addressed a room of reporters at the Muhammad Ali Center in Louisville Wednesday. He talked about several topics, one of which being what he'll do in office. He says he will rescind Bevin's Medicare waiver.
Well, we're going to look at every option that is out there to make sure that we can provide affordable and accessible health care to our people.
Beshears, the former attorney general, will have to have someone fill the role. He says he has not decided yet, but has reached out across party lines to get input.
Well, I've reached out and left a message with Daniel Cameron. I'm going to talk to him about that issue.
Beshears preached bipartisanship Wednesday. He will need it. The House and Senate are Republican, along with every other constitutional office that was on Tuesday's ballot.
Regardless of how they voted, I'm going to serve as their governor, and regardless of how they voted, I'm going to try to be a good governor for them.
As Beshears says, the election outcome won't change, and he believes it is time to move on.
Yeah, Will, as you heard, you could see him right there saying, like, he's pretty confident. You know, the margin's just too big. Bevin, on the other hand, saying that's really not the case, calling out the Secretary of State for calling the election so quickly.
Yeah, you could tell he was a little bit visibly frustrated at her calling that. We caught up with Allison Lundergan-Grimes today, and she said just that 5,000-point margin, if it's still that after the recanvass, she, as Secretary of State, does not see any reason to call for a recount.
Exactly, and I know earlier we talked with Senate President Robert Stivers about all this. He weighed in, Republican obviously, about his thoughts on this. He made some pretty interesting comments yesterday about all this.
Yeah, he had made some comments last night when it looked like it was going to be called in favor of now Governor-elect Andy Beshears about a possible contested election. Today, he clarified those comments for us.
When you think there was 1.4 million votes and the difference between the two candidates is between 4,000 and 5,000, that's less than 0.5%. So it's appropriate that he requested.
Connor, again, none of that matters until this recanvass happens, and that will happen next Thursday.
Yeah, that's when that official recanvass does happen, and will really, like you said earlier, what a 24 hours it has been.
An incredible 24 hours, and we will be sitting on bated breath until next Thursday to see how this saga plays out. Steve, the rain's starting to fall here in Frankfort, so we're going to send it back to you in the studio. For now, live outside the governor's mansion in Frankfort, he's Connor James. I'm Will Puckett, WYMT Mountain News.
All right, Will and Connor, thank you very much. And historically, those recanvasses usually change little to nothing in the vote total. So let's take a look at Andy Beshears' path to victory. Check out this map. There's 23 counties in blue, those won by Beshear. And in red, 97 counties were won by Governor Bevin. Many thought he needed to split eastern Kentucky, but high turnout in the state's two largest cities, Lexington and Louisville, helped him overcome those odds. In Metro Louisville, he won by nearly 99,000 votes. In Lexington, he won by 36,000. Many also believe the Libertarian candidate took away more Bevin votes than Beshear. Today, we also sat down with Stephen Baraka, a political science professor at Eastern Kentucky University. He believes the governor's race came down to one thing: motivation, especially in the urban areas where turnout surpassed historical trends and is liberal leaning. With Republicans performing so well in the down ticket races, he believes policy did not change votes as much as Governor Bevin's rhetoric did.
Kentucky is a socially conservative state, which explains how Republicans did well statewide. Yet the state is not economically conservative. It still has a populist economic element, and I think
He went on to say he believes Governor Bevin's pension strategy annoyed some or many across the state. Baraka also said Republicans should still walk away feeling energized with so many wins last night. A big factor in this race, certainly education. We know Governor Bevin has been met with harsh criticism from Kentucky's teachers. Andy Beshear used that as part of his campaign. Today we're hearing from the Kentucky Education Association, who've been critical of the governor. Victor Puente has their reaction to last night's vote.
At today's press conference for Governor-elect Andy Beshear, his running mate, Jacqueline Coleman, wasn't the only educator in the room. Members of the Kentucky Education Association were there, admiring their work.
I think the educators made the difference in this election. I think educators all across the state, our KEA members, came out. They went out into their communities. They knocked on doors. They talked to their neighbors.
The fight between Governor Matt Bevin and teachers across the Commonwealth over the pension system had led thousands of them to Frankfort to protest. It caused multiple school districts to have to close. They say they don't anticipate that kind of relationship with Beshear.
And now we know moving forward that he's going to stand with us and give us a seat at the table so we can have conversations about public education that's going to have real impacts in our classrooms all across the state.
These educators tell me they realize, regardless of who's in office, finding money for those pension problems is still going to be a big issue here in Frankfort.
New sources of revenue are always going to be needed, and that will be up to the legislature that will make that decision. But I think with Andy, he's going to be standing up for the educators, and we'll coming together to make some kind of decision that will really focus on public education.
In Frankfort, Victor Puente, WYMT Mountain News.
The Kentucky Republican Party is filing a federal election complaint against Kentucky sports radio host and Bell County native Matt Jones. The complaint accuses Jones of serious violations of campaign regulations. It says Kentucky Sports Radio and a book tour for Jones's new book, critical of Senator Mitch McConnell, amounts to corporate donations to his political campaign. Now, earlier this year, Jones formed an exploratory committee to consider a run for the U.S. Senate next year. He has not announced his candidacy. On Twitter, Jones responded to the complaint saying, quote, Mitch McConnell is trying to get KSR taken off the air. He goes on to call the complaint nonsense. Now, in our latest live web poll, we want to know which Democrat you are most likely to support to take on Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell next year. And the majority of you right now are saying House Minority Floor Leader Rocky Adkins. Second is someone other than him, Matt Jones. and then Amy McGrath. Of course, McGrath, the only one to announce her candidacy so far.
And we saw a lot of sunshine today. Hopefully you got out and enjoyed it. Now clouds starting to increase and those rain chances return as we head into tomorrow. Interstate 64 in Moorhead, you could see that sunshine a little bit earlier today, and there's those clouds increasing, and now we're heading into those evening hours. You can see that here on satellite and radar as well. As you heard Will and Connor say, the rain's starting to fall. You can see a little bit of that over into Louisville and over into Lexington on its way to our area. But for temperatures right now, you're seeing most of us into about those upper 50s, some of us dropping into the lower 50s if you're looking into Middlesboro and even over into Prestonsburg as well. Most of us will drop into about those mid to upper 40s. Clouds continue to increase. Could see a stray chance or two, but the best chance for rain will be tomorrow. We'll break down the soggy and cold forecast over the next couple of days coming up in just a little bit. Steve.
All right, Paige, thank you. A coal company with several mines in our region plans to lay off more than 150 people around the beginning of next year. WYMT's Hannah Reynolds talks to officials about what they fear this could mean for the miners and their families living in those counties.
When officials got a warn notice from Nally and Hamilton, one of the most stable coal companies in the region, it was unsettling to say the least.
To have 100 folks be laid off, you could probably factor that, multiply that times 3. So, we would end up with 300 to 400 people negatively impacted.
The notices hit desk of judge executives in Harlan, Leslie, Nelson, Bell, and Laurel counties last week, informing them that miners in their area could be laid off. The biggest of which was in Pineville, potentially putting 97 jobs at stake. Something former miners of Nally and Hamilton who were laid off years ago fear for their friends, as they know the drill all too well.
I know what I went through last time, because I ended up losing my truck and I lost my house. And, so I know how it can end up if you can't find something else.
But Phipps, other miners we talked to, and Judge Executive Albie Brock say they are hopeful it will not come to fruition.
We're going to pray that the Hamiltons do what they've always done, and that is survive in any coal market. And again, I'm going to have faith that they will.
If the layoffs do happen, there are an expected 170 layoffs total throughout the company. In Bell County, Hannah Reynolds, WYMT Mountain News.
We also reached out today to Nally and Hamilton Enterprises at their Bardstown office, and they did not want to comment. A new court filing reveals new information in the class action lawsuit against Black Jewel. Attorneys entered into confidential mediation a few days ago. We have learned little progress was made. Since the bankruptcy case is mostly resolved, the federal magistrate wrote the class action will likely move into district federal court. 2 eastern Kentucky natives died in a Tennessee crash. Transportation officials say Jared Helton and Justin Stafford were both working as contractors for a safety company. A third victim, Cody Cantrell, is also from Kentucky. The crash happened on I-40 near Memphis. The 3 men were trying to replace reflectors in the middle of the road when they were struck and killed. We hope to learn more about that crash later tonight. The city of Pikeville has partnered with the University of Pikeville to make upgrades at Bob Amos Park. Those renovations, which are currently underway, include a new turfed football field in the center of the Bob Amos track. Both end zones display the word Pikeville, and a silhouette of Kentucky is displayed on the 50-yard line. An official ribbon cutting will be held Friday at 1:30 p.m. to celebrate the renovations.
And we're tracking a cold front that'll bring soggy weather back into the mountains and cool us off as we head into your Friday and into the weekend as well. I'll have all those details coming up in just a little bit.
But first, a Pikeville restaurant is working to serve up biscuits and blessings with a new initiative.